This conference will now be recorded.
The planning board regular meeting agenda for Tuesday, August 18th, 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. Go on approval. We're going to go over the approval of the minutes of June 16th meeting. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes for June 16th?
So move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second for approval.
All in favor? All in favor?
All in favor?
We vote.
We'll go to the third item on the agenda, administrative site plan review for 296 Taylor Notion Road.
So the applicant has asked to remove that from the agenda tonight. They've indicated that they will return it to our agenda next month, that they weren't quite ready for tonight's meeting, which is fine. It was fine for them to pull that from the agenda. We're still have some questions for them on this, and so very agreeable just working through those things, and wasn't quite ready to be on our agenda for consideration tonight. So they've asked for that to be pulled. There were a couple of other items that I've talked to a couple of y'all about. And as you know, we had a public input meeting this afternoon, or really a public information meeting with NCDOT. And I'm gonna mention a couple other things to you tonight as well, that we've been working on. And several of us were there. Ms. Holtz was there. Several of us were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like just wanted to bring those things up tonight, and probably won't be able to answer a great deal of questions about them, but just wanted y'all to be aware. The biggest one, and DOT came to the commissioners 3 meetings ago and talked about the slip lanes at 58 and 24. As y'all know, this project has been on DOT's radar for years, right? So the first rendition that we looked at, of course, I wasn't here, but was kind of running the transportation operations for the county, so I was very aware of it and involved in that. Was a larger footprint. You know, they looked out and there were some businesses that Cape Carteret was going to lose, and Cape Carteret citizens and commissioners, very much to their credit, came out and said, "Hey, we don't want this. This is not what we want." There's been some other renditions, and the compressed diamond was the last that was somewhat palatable, but DOT realizing the traffic that we have at that intersection, all of us realizing the traffic that we have at that intersection, has proposed slip lanes. And Ms. Holtz was gracious enough to print us out a couple of copies of these for tonight, which I passed out. And if you look at the back of the page that you have there, it shows that. So if it's oriented, if you're looking at it with north, kind of to your right side, as you read the page there, Cedar Point would be straight ahead. Cape Carteret would be this way. So you can see that if you're traveling west on Highway 24, there's a slip lane that turns off and heads up 58. And conversely, if you're traveling east on 24, there's a slip lane that would take you and put you into a merge lane there on the bridge. DOT's real reason behind this is y'all know, as we all would, especially during the summer, especially during move in, move out during the summer, but generally during the summer, during any high traffic time, a lot of that traffic backs up, and you may have to wait a couple of light cycles, especially making that turn onto the island. Right? So this will kind of spread that traffic out a little bit, and let those free turns happen. There's a lot of conversation going on at the state level about the Emerald Isle Bridge. We're very involved in that. The bridge. What do you do once you get over the bridge? What do we do up here on 58, which I'll get to in just a second. And that's the one I've got a story about. But all that said, DOT, we prioritized the projects in the county a month or so ago, and you would think that the easy and obvious thing to do, and DOT is very much in favor, Emerald Isle has requested roundabouts as you go down there. But the biggest issue is traffic on the bridge. you're still taking 2 lanes, and it doesn't change 2 lanes. It's 2 lanes of traffic. So there are some things coming along that we're prioritizing and allow as far as traffic circles to kind of mitigate some of that congestion. But that's really what I have on this particular item. So, y'all have anything to add? Y'all were at the meeting. So we're still very much engaged in the transportation planning process here on the western end of the county.
What is their timeline for decisions on this?
So the reality is, I think the decisions have been made. I think this is what they're proposing. I think that this is, it's certainly more palatable than losing businesses here in Cape Carteret. And I think they're looking at something in the interim that they could do that would help this. So is this going to fix this? Absolutely not. Will it help mitigate some traffic? I think it will to some extent. Anytime, well, in the long and short, as far as mitigating traffic. So anytime you add capacity, you mitigate, you just spread it out a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, it's still a 2-lane bridge. So that's the crux of that whole situation. You spread it out more, do you move up? Yeah, you move up, but still a 2-lane bridge. So, but that's that. The next one I want to talk about is the roundabout of 58. So this is going to become a reality a little bit sooner. So 7-8 years ago, when I was at the county, I was getting worn out over this intersection right here. People were calling, it's a dangerous intersection. There's no 2 ways about it. It's just the geometry of that intersection is not good, right? So, and so I call fuss at DOT. That's how that usually goes, right? So people call fuss at me. I call fuss at DOT. DOT says, "What do you want me to do about it?" I was like, "I don't know, fix it." Like, they're like, "Well, what do you do?" I don't know. They're like, "That's not what I do." Like, so anyway, they looked at signalization at that intersection, and that's just not going to help in any way, shape, or form because of traffic flow, right? So, and I will tell you, signalization is great in a lot of senses, in a lot of ways. But when you have that volume of traffic, signalization is not the answer. So you will, if you put signalization there. Additionally, that geometry of that intersection is not ideal for signalization. So they came back several years ago, and it's been probably 4, and proposed this roundabout. To be honest with you, when you first look at it, it doesn't look like the best thing in the world. But I do think it's the best solution for a bad intersection with that geometry. So
Without a signal.
without a signal, right? And I think it gives us a really nice gateway into the town of Cape Carteret. I think it also, will slow that traffic. I think it will improve the free flow of traffic right there, no doubt. So I think it's the best of that situation. But I could go all the way back to what I was saying before. At the end of the day, during high traffic periods, you still got a 2-lane bridge. It's a 2-lane bridge. So, that's really all I've got. But we'll see this fall. We'll see construction start on that. So that's going to become a reality sooner than later. One of the things that we talked about with DOT as well tonight, and got a chance to look at, and I've been working, I don't know if y'all remember Preston Hunter. Preston was division engineer for a long time, went to Global Transport, is subsequently retired. Great guy, really good at getting money and making things happen. We're looking at mass storm signalization out here on 24 right out in front of Town Hall. At a couple of these intersections. So not only does that make us more resilient in storms, it's aesthetically, it's a lot more pleasing than your traffic lights hanging on the line, right? And right here, they're looking at actually putting pedestrian refuges in and signalized crosswalks, which would be a great help to the town. Additionally, this past week, DOT had a call for projects. I am submitting 2 projects. One of them I have submitted. And other things have kept me from submitting the other, but I've got till the end of the month to do it. So rest assured it'll get done. But one of the projects I submitted was sidewalk from Yopon down to Cape Point, and then a crosswalk across to White Oak Elementary with that same raised pedestrian island. So I'll tell you, pedestrian islands are, especially when you look at the width of the roadway, are for 2 reasons. One's the obvious reason, right? So you're not playing Frogger across all of that. You're only having to play Frogger half of that and then half again, right? But the other thing that pedestrian refuges do, and with our police department, enforcement is out there in 24 is a big thing. And some of the rates of speed out there would just shock you. Like I would say it wouldn't surprise you because y'all drive in it just like I do, but it would surprise you. Like if you look at the data. So our guys work really hard on that, but being a small department, we can't be out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you place pedestrian refuges on a roadway, the other big thing it does is it is a visual barrier. So two of the things they teach us in planning is if you're designing a road, you want limited speed. There's two like primary methods. One is you make the road curvy, right? So you're not going to speed as much on a curvy road because you have to slow down. People still manage to do it, but like it's not as bad. And the second thing you do is narrow your lane width. So on a narrow road, visually, you don't feel like you have as much space, and so you slow down. These pedestrian refuges give you the visual effect of narrowing that roadway. And so it helps a great deal with traffic calming as well. So that's the two reasons that those are important. The other project that I anticipate is something, y'all are familiar with the playground that we're constructing right now. So we have that great trail. Yeah. So it's going to be even better. I'll talk about that. Just a quick shot on that in a second. But we've got that great trail. We've got the playground. We've got other things that we're planning for in the future. But you still have to cross Taylor Notion Road. So we're going to look at a crosswalk mid-block up there that would connect all of that together so people can get out of Star Hill and have a crosswalk there. That's the other project that we're going to submit. Whether it gets funded or not, I don't know. But I think it would be very, very good for the town. I think having anytime we can do something that people can walk from one side of town to the other, that's going to be a good thing. So that's kind of what we're looking at on.
What about Bayshore?
So I asked last year for a light up there. And
I meant, like walking from Bayshore, you'll see a lot of people walking.
Sure. So I'll talk about that for a second. So the biggest hurdle to Bayshore right now is Deer Creek. So, I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts, right? So that's an expensive creek crossing. We cross on the other side. So what we do up there around Taylor Notion in the future, I think the biggest thing is going to be slowing traffic there as best we can and trying to figure out how to get across. So when we look at transportation projects, and this can be any of them. So and feasibility, you look at, hey, what am I accomplishing? So we don't want to do anything for nothing. Right? So what am I accomplishing? And the second thing you look at is fundability. And I've been preaching this for years. Sometimes it's resonated, sometimes it's not. But fundability is huge, right? So if you take a project and I give you a project that says, hey, we want this to this, and the funding agency does not have that, or the funding agency is not going to fund something that size. So I think getting to Cape Point is one shot that's fundable in this round. I think we go back. I mean, I think we look at building sidewalk the whole way ultimately, right? But fundability wise, that's what's fundable in this round, right? So that connects into an existing sidewalk, which makes sense. It connects to an elementary school, which makes sense. This is fundable, if that makes sense. So fundability is really big. I mean, you can write the greatest grant in the world, and if it's outside of the scope of what they're willing to do, you wasted your time. It's definitely part of the bike and ped plan that we have.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of bikers are coming from Bayshore on the dirt side.
Sure. I just think that's the fundable section. Getting across the creek is going to be a hurdle. I mean,
We're just walking the curb there.
Sure, is a hurdle, right?
Right.
Yeah. But spacing wise with utilities and everything else, that's just, but again, I think, if you get that, then the next section that makes sense is to move it on down, whether it's to Bogue Sound or whether it's to Bayshore or wherever. But I think when you look at fundability, that's what you look at. What kind of bike can I talk somebody into taking? And I think that's the one I can talk them into taking now.
When will you hear back from those?
It'd probably be midwinter. We'll get them submitted. Then we'll advocate. I mean, that's what we always do. So and see where we go. If we get one of them, it'll be a win. If we get both of them, it'll be a big win. But you keep asking. So
very good.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good for sure. Meredith and I had talked. That's all I have on that, unless there's other questions. Meredith and I had talked earlier in the month about vegetation, and so I'm gonna turn that over to you.
Yeah, I really wanted to just bring it up and pick everyone's brains and hear your thoughts about adding some verbiage to our UDO about natural area protection and land clearing you guys are here, you see it every day, our area is growing. And with that is coming development, which is great. But I think a big part of what makes our town and keeps our town feeling like a beautiful small town, even with all of our development, is the natural area that we have, the trees that we have established, everything like that. And this doesn't need to be anything, as extreme as other residing townships, but just putting something in place that allows some of these new residential and commercial sites to have natural vegetation remain on them rather than clear cutting the whole thing and turning our great established town into something that looks like it was just wiped clean and stuck with new things on it. Any thoughts?
Well, people need to keep their trees because of the hurricanes and the soil, waterways.
And we do a good job talking about that in the UDO with like our buffer requirements, which I think would be encompassed as a part of that as well. But really just identifying through us, through our conversations, through the commissioners, what is reasonable to keep in our area, what doesn't need to be disturbed, and what's a reasonable portion of existing natural landscape that is practical within a build or new construction.
Are there any other similar towns that have adopted something very similar to what you're talking about?
Yeah,
That we
so
could even look at?
Emerald Isle does a 35% natural area. Pinal Shores is very specific about their tree protection. And then Cedar Point does a tree mapping. So they go more on a tree canopy rather than a natural area percentage.
So just as, and I'll assert an opinion here, if that's okay. So I don't think we want to be overly burdensome with it.
No.
But I do get exactly what you're saying, right? So one of the things that we do when somebody comes in, so we have a no cost permit. If you want to come in, you want to get rid of some underbrush. And one of the things that we put in there, you correct me because I'm gonna say it wrong, so please correct me. But one of the conditions we put in that, so if you just wanted to come and clear the underbrush on your lot, it would be you can't cut any trees over 4 inches. I think that's what we generally put is 4 inches, right? So you're just trying to get rid of, just open it up a little bit. What you're talking about though is more on the development side. And so I do think there's probably a way to do this without being overburdensome. I don't think we want to certainly go to the extent that some communities have, but I do think there's like a common sense way to do that. But I think it's going to take some thought. So just my opinion again, this is something that we'll probably talk about with our comp plan steering committee because I think it's a bigger, right? So it's a bigger overarching, and then come back to the planning commission with some type of recommendation. I think our recommendations would be exactly what you said, not overburdensome, but says something. So I can see the benefit of, especially when you're talking about some of the bigger oak trees, so they won't be replaced in our lifetime, right? They get cut, they're gone.
Yeah.
But it also, I will tell you, just from a municipal government side as well, there's times, there's gonna be some oak trees we have to cut, right? They're dangerous. And so there has common sense in a lot of these, and I'm not saying what you said it doesn't.
No, I agree.
But in some sense, it has to outweigh, everything else. We look at safety, like should be one of those things. I don't want to cut these oak trees. Like I like oak trees. They're cool, right? So, and they'll never grow again in my lifetime. So once they're gone, they're gone. So I think something to that effect would probably be better. Because I'll be honest with you, some of the smaller scrub stuff doesn't have a lot of aesthetic value. There's not a lot of value to that. Some of the bigger things do. So I think figuring out exactly what that looks like, and then putting something not to the detriment of making a lot usable, those things, and having some area there would probably be better. But my 2 cents.
What are our next steps if we do want to, take a look at it? I think we do. At least I do. I think it would be important. So what are the next steps that we can prepare for, that we need to do?
Yeah, what I'd ask y'all is to go out and research this on your own. I'll do it as well, but research this on your own, and let's add it to as an item of discussion, and kind of see if we can't pare down something. I don't want to take anything to the commissioners for adoption that is not adoptable, right? So if it's not the will I certainly don't want to take something that's not adoptable. So I think having those discussions and talking about that at next month's meeting and at subsequent meetings is the way. And looking at what you see, right? And I think you've got a really good perspective of this, being the business you're in, right? So you've got a good perspective of this, of not making a lot unusable. But we certainly don't want to do that.
I think that's a big part, is not exactly what you said, not preventing the reasonable use of property for anyone, or
Right.
limiting them for what they can do, but also maintaining the vegetation that we have established
And I
in
think,
some
The
aspects.
pine trees, they soak up a lot of water and we're a ditch town.
and the disconnect, they do. Well, and the disconnect, I don't think is typically with the homeowner, right? So I don't think the disconnect is there. I think the disconnect is more with the developer that comes in, and the easiest thing to do is to cut everything off the lot. And the homeowner will probably be like, man, I'd really like to save that tree, that tree, right? So that's the disconnect we've seen. The other thing is, we're fairly developed, right? So we're fairly developed. Where you see this make the biggest impact, outside of the big oak trees, right? So I'm gonna talk outside of those, take those and put them over here. Is in the subdivision process when you have because it is really, really easy, and we're all familiar with those subdivisions that developer came in and bought a field because the field's really good. It's a good soil, right? So, and it's already cleared. And so it's really, really easy to go in. That keeps his lot cost down because he's not having to clear. He's not having to grow. He's not having to do all those things to make that developable. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind as we look at this, is, looking at them as mostly already platted lots, and look at it from that perspective.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we already have a portion of this in town center zoning that talks about having a 25% natural area remaining. So it is consistent in that realm that it would carry over in a relevant area. Not saying it has to be 25%, but that there's already something established in the UDO regarding natural area percentages.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you look at, if you're talking about a 15,000 square foot lot or 10,000 square foot lot, you're and while that percentage, would shift with the size of the lot. I mean, I do think there has to be some thought put into that, of how we do that.
How much land is for sale right now?
I don't have any idea.
None of mine. And I'd like
And you
to
got the
address
most of it,
this.
so-
I would like to address this issue. I don't plan to sell any of the 50 acres that Manatee owns during my lifetime. That's the town center. Mike Holtz has 10 acres north of McDaddy's. Star Hill is established. But it might interest y'all to know that one of the most beautiful subdivisions in town, Deer Creek, used to be a tobacco field and a melon patch. And there were 0 trees. And guess who went in and transplanted oak trees and put them at the corners on the property lines of bare lots? Me and Barrington Page with a tree spade. So, and some of them have been cut by the homeowners, but we created a beautiful subdivision with planted trees. This is my lifetime we're talking about. But I am extremely conscious of the abhorrence of clear cutting. And I'll pledge to you right now, I will never just go in and whack and clear cut indiscriminately, that it will always be planned. And I am so proud of some oak trees that I personally saved on Bonita Street. Now they're young, they're only 50 years old.
They're baby oak trees, right?
But they're beautiful. They're live oaks. And when we were bush hogging and we tried to keep the neighborhoods nice and mowed, I said, if you cut one of these trees, I'm going to cut you. But really and truly, I sincerely appreciate your concern. And I'm not going to denude anything that I have anything to do with. And I think I've shown that in the past. Now, once we sell something, that
Right.
but I'm talking about a subdivided lot.
Sure.
Because I don't plan to do any new subdivisions.
Well, there's some beautiful subdivided lots already in town that have nice trees on them
Yes.
and everything.
Yes, there are.
I mean, there's an instant. instances like that, so.
I would be curious if the town has the resources to tell us how many vacant lots remain in the different areas.
We have a count of those. It's not
Yeah.
current, but it's current enough that we can make some pretty good assumptions off of that pretty easily.
I'd love to know about that, just
Yeah.
so we could direct our energies to those.
Yeah,
That makes
how many lots are out there? Yeah.
Also, I hate to say it, the power company butchered a whole bunch of beautiful trees.
Yes.
And when I say butchered, you should see the one behind my house. I was just like,
So the power company in cutting is a double-edged sword. So if we tell them, and I will tell you, so, and I struggle with this, right? So we tell them, don't cut. Well, they don't have to listen to us, A. But B, if we tell them don't cut, then we're telling them to come restore our power. And so, from a government standpoint, it's really, really tough. Now, we had instances where they were in right of ways that weren't on the street. And so I requested that they, and I don't know if we've done this before, but I said, you need to go to every house and you need to talk to these people and you need to let them know what you're doing. I'm not gonna go out there and talk to them, let them know what you're doing. You need to own this because they're gonna call me if they don't like what you're doing and I'm gonna talk to them. So tell me what you're doing and you need to go talk to these people. And they went door to door on a lot of these places, and talked to these people and let them know. Ma'am, where do you live? So most of these were in Old Cape Carter. They're in the backyard, right? So it's not on the right of way.
Yeah, but they would, after the hurricane, they cut them and wouldn't pick up the debris.
Well, they picked it up this time because there's big old piles of shit after they're on Taylor Nation Road, right?
I had a time with that.
And when they didn't pick it up, we went behind them and we called, said, hey guys, you left this, that, or the other. You left this hanging. If you would, you need to go
Right.
get this. And that was a daily occurrence when Xylem was in the heat of this last.
That's what we had
so.
town manager.
yeah, I just noticed that like on the back of my property, they just hacked them. Like if they had a crotch in them, they were just like.
They're not gentle.
No,
They're not gentle
I
with
was
these
like,
things.
'cause when I was a kid, I did part-time arborist and I'm just like, that tree's done.
Yep.
So that's on Lura's property, I think. The one right
What's
behind
the
my
other?
house.
Where they back up to,
Yeah.
and they have an easement right between the
Right,
lots.
yeah, right down the.
Yeah.
So it's right near a power pole. And they-
Yeah.
I was like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's tough because last hurricane, that's where that spool came through and knocked over like 3 or 4 right in that section.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, well, not last hurricane, Florence.
Yeah.
So,
That's a big one.
Hopefully it'll be the last big one we have for a long
Uh-huh.
time.
Yes,
That's right.
sir. Praise the Lord.
There any other items that y'all want to discuss tonight?
No, I'd like to mention, since she's so interested in nature. Pardon me? Wasn't it? Island. What's the name of the island in front of my house and your house?
Oh, well, I call it Audubon Islands. Other people call it Hunting Island.
Yeah, Hunting Island. Audubon owns it in
Yeah.
Utah.
Yeah.
They redone every one of their islands in Wilmington. And made trails and everything.
Oh.
It took me almost a year to find out who owned that island, and they didn't even know they had it. Audubon.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And they're out of New York, okay? I might find the paperwork.
This is Hunting Island?
My father gave it to him. Mother and daddy gave it to him. He
Yeah.
created that island when he
But
did
when
the
I called
Puritan.
Audubon, they said, we don't have no land there.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yes, they did. And
Yes,
had
they
it
do.
forever.
I found out, and then I tried to get, when I was commissioner,
Yeah.
and Richard Hunt, I thought maybe he was a nature person. I thought he'd go take off with it, but he didn't. But you could look into that, getting that island set up, walking trails,
nature trails.
boaters, and
You have to run off the deer.
they've been coming to the house, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I see them on my
They're
cameras
cute
all
as-
the
they're
time.
cute as they could be, the little ones too.
They're tasty as well.
Except the deer on Taylor Ocean.
Our guys generally do, so.
Yeah, they have.
DOT
we have
doesn't get it
one
first,
yet, that's
we
all.
get them, so.
Yeah. Check that out.
Number 4.
Oh. Okay. Our next item is the next Board of Commissioning meeting, and we need someone to speak it.
No, ma'am, we've eliminated that, so
Oh, we did.
we did.
You weren't here.
Oh, so then you eliminate. That's cool.
Yes, I do that, so. It was repetitive for a board member to
Well,
do it,
yeah,
they may do
because
it,
you-
because I'm turning around presenting these items.
Yes, sir.
so.
I agree with it. I'm glad you did
Thank
that.
you for doing that, Jean.
And And I could come and listen, see if you're telling the
Come on.
whole story.
I tell mostly the truth, mostly the truth, right?
No falsehoods, huh?
Right.
Okay, next board meeting, September 14th, everybody in favor of September 14th on Monday?
That's
That's the Board of
Commissioners.
Commissioners. So.
Oh, y'all want, no meeting, okay. Dean will take care of
I got that one.
Yep, yep.
Okay, now the next item is the next planning board meeting, September 15th on a Tuesday.
Right.
Night after the town meeting. Is everybody in favor of it? Okay, do I need a second or first?
No, that's already, they're preset,
We're
right?
good.
So they're adopted for the year.
Yeah.
Okay, and the planning board members' comments.
I have some, but I'll wait for
Does
anybody.
anyone else have any? You got any?
I shared my piece. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Thanks
I
for
appreciate
listening.
that.
We appreciate your doing all
Yeah.
that
Oh,
work.
yeah.
You should have made a little piece of paper of all your notes. for
I'll
all
make it
of
up.
us.
I'll share it at our next one.
Okay, sounds good. I'd like to see your research and what you come up with.
So-
Ms. Holmes?
Thank you. I have been inundated with calls from Piedmont Natural Gas. Now, I've said before, Piedmont Natural Gas put their main supply line on my land on Country Club Point because they assumed that the asphalt that goes around that beautiful pine tree in the middle of the road indicated where the right of way was. Well, it doesn't. There is no right of way there. Country Club Point Section 1 just floats because there is no recorded subdivision from Highway 24 down to the first area of Country Club Point Section 1 recorded map. So they agreed that they would remove their gas line from my land. It's literally in my land along with the asphalt that we drive over when we go into Country Club Point. The issue is, where do they put the line and where is the town going to put their road? Well, my question is, where are we on that? I've asked for 2 or 3 years, and so.
Yeah, I think we've resolved the issue of where we could put the road, right? And Brett's looked at it. I've sent that back to Brett. You helped reconnect me with the property owners there. So,
Yes. So what's going on?
so
When is it
we've
going to happen?
we've not done anything on it in a while.
Okay, well, I'd really like,
So it's from 24 to the tree,
beyond the tree.
Beyond the tree.
beyond the
Right.
tree, on the left.
No,
No.
there is no right of way.
Right.
There is no subdivision recorded from 24 to beyond that pine tree.
Okay,
And the 2 paved areas around the pine tree exceed 60 feet wide. See? Now, Tidewater has come up with a solution to take up the pavement on the west side, Swansboro side, and put both lanes on the east side. But in order to do that, we'll need the agreement of the property owners, and since there's no subdivision planned for in there, we'll just need an agreement for the
Well,
road location and dedication.
Right, so it would be a dedication.
Yes,
Yes, it would be a
that's correct.
dedication.
So I'm just bringing that up and asking if it be,
can we have the tree dug up?
No, no, ma'am. It's
You
too
can't
big.
dig it
No,
up?
no,
No, that's
it's
a
not cost
70-year-old pine
effective
tree.
at all, and we would probably kill it.
Yeah.
In the process.
probably.
Yeah, we can get around it, but we can't.
They can move them in Raleigh like that. We can move them.
Yeah. Our budget's not quite as big as the city of Raleigh, so we pale in comparison
Yeah.
to the city of Raleigh.
So
budget.
that's just one area. I tell Piedmont that we're still waiting.
Right.
So I would like to know if there's any action by the church.
No.
But they own that property now.
Yes,
So they would be part of the,
I think it would. No, I don't know that they would, because I think that the way it goes in right there, I think it would be almost wholly on well, they would be part of it.
Yeah.
They would be part of it, at least for
Yeah.
that short span.
all right, number 2. I have been requested by my nephew, Bubba McLean, to meet with a young man named Aaron Keel, and he wants to hold a tent revival. And I spoke to Eric today, Eric Platania, to ask if that's a town issue, and to Gene, and they said, no, this would be a request by the revival folks to ask if they could hold a revival. Now, he wants to have it beside ribeyes. I have no objection to a tent revival as long as the lady who owns the ribeyes business does not object, because it would be right beside her.
Right.
And the message I got today was to September 25th through 27th. Now, I don't know if that means one of those days or 3 of those days. And I don't know any details, but I'm bringing it to you.
So this is not a plan, this is not something we would
No,
consider here at
No,
all.
but just
So
for
just, yeah,
information.
just so everybody's aware,
Yes.
just about the process on that. So this is not something the planning commission nor the
Right.
special events committee would consider. We have an
Right.
administrative process
Right.
for this. And the administrative process is purely so that we make sure we have the proper amount of town resources to support an event like this.
Right.
We don't want somebody to show up and surprise,
Right.
and we've got 2 officers working and there's 600 people show up in town.
Exactly.
Right, so it's an administrative process. We have an application form, and actually they fill it out. We look at it, the chief and I look at it. We advise the commissioners of what's going on, make sure we don't have any comment, make sure that Western Florida Fire is on board, and
Yeah.
are prepared for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Make sure if there's any, as y'all may or may not know, 3 or 4 months ago, we passed an off-duty police officer policy, right? So the taxpayers here in Cape Carter, when there was a special event, were bearing the cost of having extra guys on duty.
Mhm.
Now, part of it is the cost, but the other part of this, and this is getting way down a rabbit hole on this, but part of it is the cost, but part of it is, so if these guys have already worked 42 hours this week and I'm calling them back and getting them to come back on the weekend, not only am I burning them out, I'm burning them out for no incentive, right?
Ah.
And so it's an off-duty policy where if we see fit, if we think you need extra police officers on duty, we have a mechanism to charge for that, where it's not burdening the taxpayer for you to come here and hold an event where we can put our officers with our insurance, so they're protected as well, right? But we can compensate them for that. So, but that's the things we look at when we consider this special event.
So Gina and I discussed this afternoon. My only reason in bringing it up is the more people who know really what's happening, then there won't be a lot of rumors flying. I don't want to hear anything about snake handling. Forget I even said that. That's a terrible joke, and I don't mean any disrespect, because, but anyway, the more of us that really know what's what, and when people ask, you can say.
Yeah, we did the carnivals over there too.
Of course.
Would you like me to ask on the application about snake handling?
No, please don't, please don't. No. The other thing was, today I saw a young fella on a motorized scooter, and it scared me to death. He came shooting out down Golf and Dolphin Drive, shooting through traffic, no helmet. It couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Turned right onto the sidewalk, in and out of traffic, and then shot up the hike bike trail. So I know we've talked about this before, but
So this is another one. So this isn't a planning commission
No,
function,
I
but it's a
know.
good topic for conversation. So the commissioners are looking at this right now. The long story short is Attorney DeSelms and I went through the law on this, and so the state realized, we're a subdivision of the state, so we can only do what the state allows us to do in many
Yeah.
instances. So this would be a general ordinance. This would not be a planning ordinance. But all that said, the state has adopted some legislation here July 1 that does not go into effect until December 1. It's been a topic of conversation of what we want to do with this, even at the last commissioners meeting,
Yes,
how
I
we
was
want to
there.
address this.
Electrical
So,
bikes.
yeah, so there's a couple of different classes. One of them is very mundane. It's not much to it. It's not. And then you go up to where you're practically on a moped, right? So you're on a legit motorized vehicle, and there's other things that come with that. And so But all the same, none of those regulations are enforceable by us or adoptable by us until December. So we want to take our time and make sure we do that correctly, but it's something that's definitely on the radar.
And the last thing, I'm sure y'all have been informed about the steering committee meeting that'll be Thursday, August the 20th here. If anybody feels like attending the steering committee meeting and, just wanted to mention it. I was lucky. I didn't know anything about this Department of Transportation meeting until I rode by and saw the signs. And I was thrilled to be able to learn.
Sure. But so we advertise that on our social media.
Yeah.
We, DOT advertised it. So.
See, I don't do social media.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I don't like social media, but.
I don't do it, but
Gene, I'm concerned about, I've seen people on their golf carts coming from Old Cape Carteret, crossing the highway,
Right.
and they don't have DMV tags.
Right.
And I'm trying to think that it's been maybe 4 times. They got kids on there. When they get their sticker, are they told they can cross 24 at the traffic light to go to the shopping center?
I don't tell them that. So,
I mean, is that legal
no, I don't think it is. Your golf
without
cart.
a DMV tag?
That's correct.
Certain things that you have to
They're
do to them.
getting, they're
to
getting
be sure.
bold about it. If they see one, then another one's doing
Right.
it. You know what I'm saying? They're getting bold about it. It's just dangerous, that's all.
that's all.
I don't care that they ride it, the golf cart,
Sure.
you know?
Mhm.
But crossing down there at First Citizen Banks where they're doing that.
It's a dangerous intersection. I
Very
think keep on there
Very.
twice.
Yeah.
To say the
Really?
least. So.
Damn.
Don't have anything around you.
40 miles an hour, the last time I got hit by it. Turned me right into Morehead City. I said, I don't want to go that way, but
I guess I am now.
yeah.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Not for me.
And about the church, why haven't they built their church?
I don't have any idea. It's not my business to ask people why not. So,
Being no further business, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all in favor of adjourning?
thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got it all.
Got it.
I want to ask a question.
All right.